I watched it just before we come on, Daniel. And what you would say, and what he kind of stressed as well, is that when he spoke on Saturday, it wasn't ranting and raving. It wasn't coming through a place of anger. It was very considered. It was very measured. He just said what he felt was the truth. And again today, he's backed himself. He's mentioned that he's had to do this at previous clubs, but he did say that when he's done it once at previous clubs, he's never had to do it again. So he'll be hoping that the message has got through to his players. He's right in much in what he said, and I don't think anybody can argue with it. The problem that I had with it isn't so much that he machine gunned his players because they've been needing it. It was, you're telling us something that we already know, and anybody that's watched Rangers over the period of the last, I don't know, couple of years and knows these individuals and, you know, the players involved, they know what the weakness is. It's been obvious. It's screaming out the place. So there's nothing new there. And just what I wonder, I think there's a bigger conversation, and that's what I wrote in my column today, Daniel. I think the big conversation, and maybe Russell Martin's being quite cute, because we all know these guys have got a mentality problem, right? So he comes out and he says it, and everybody talks about it again, right? Nobody's really talking about Russell Martin's system, his tactics, whether it works. So there's a bit of a diversionary tactic in there for me, Dan, because if we're not talking about Russell Martin having a go at his players for being weak mentally, we're probably looking at the system more. People are probably poking holes in the formation and the setup, and I think there's a lot to be confused about in terms of what Rangers are trying to look like. Having watched the 3 games so far this season, I'm seeing inconsistencies. And I'm seeing big holes in the middle of the pitch where you need to try and dominate. And I can only guess, well, you have to assume that this is managerial instruction. And it doesn't look good. And I think there'd be more of a debate about that over the last 48 hours had Russell Martin not come out and said what he said about the players.
What did you make of his comments, Sonny?
I agree with a lot of what Keith said. I think there's 2 key points around what Keith said as well. I think that if any player or if players see through that, as in what Keith suggested, it's almost like a diversionary tactic and throw us under the bus to cover up what you've selected, they won't go with him. Mm-hmm. We know that from the modern footballer. This isn't 10, 15 years ago, and I know I'm being maybe unfair and bracketing all footballers together, but you know as well as I do, there's 29 days of this window to go. There'll be guys on the 40 agents going, get me out of here. If I'm one of these guys, get me out of here. And you know what? Maybe Russell Martin is looking for that. Maybe he wants more changes. Maybe there's not going to be as many changes. Maybe he didn't think he was going to be able to have as big a turnover and get as many of these guys out the door as he wanted. And this is some way I kind of sparking it. Because to me, it was a very unusual thing to do on night one. I've listened to all the boys on Hotline Live since it happened. I listened to Scott last night, and he was basically saying, you know, he kind of got it, you know, call them out right away. There's no point in trying to hang on to this. I understood that point of it. I understand what Keith's saying as well. But it's a dangerous game. If you're going to have these boys on board, if you don't think there's going to be a lot of changes made before the end of this month, that's game 1, and you filleted them. How long are they going to stay with you? If you're going to have them with you all the way through for the next 6 months till you get to January, that's a dangerous game. That's a dangerous game. And to me, it just felt as though I need more changes here. I need more turnover. I need some guys out. I need some fresh guys in. And it was almost like there's 4 weeks to go. I need to make this happen. I could be talking utter rubbish, but I just thought on night 1, I spoke to a couple of guys about it today. Had Russell Martin come out after night 1, it was a terrible performance. Let's not dress that up. It was the second half was woeful from Rangers. Woeful. And there was square pegs and round holes. I think we all saw that. Had Russell Martin come out after the game and said, I'm no longer in the door. It's the first league game. Did not go the way I wanted. That's not what I expect from a Rangers team. You got to run a wee bit harder than that. We were outdone. We got away with getting a point there. I expect better, and we will get better. I think most fans would have went, well, all right, that wasn't great, but it's night 1. It's first game. he could have peddled that stance, that chat, and most people would have went, right, okay, but we need to see better in the future. I was really shocked that he did it on night one. I'm opposite from Scott. I was quite shocked that he was quite strong, or as strong, which leads me to believe what I've said. I think there must be something else in this, as in he wants more changes. He wants more turnover before the end of this window.
What's going to be really interesting then, Swanee, and you might well have a point in that theory, but what's going to be really interesting is to see what your starting 11 looks like tomorrow night, because you cannot justify taking the position that he took on Saturday night and then send out the same 11. Because you're basically saying you guys weren't trying, but go and try harder tonight. You can't make the accusation that these guys are lacking in professionalism, hunger, desire, whatever the basics are. You can't make that accusation in public and then send out the same 11.
Unless, am I right in saying, you said you watched it, Keith? I'm pretty sure I picked up the quote where he said the players understood where I was coming from and they've taken it on board and I got the response. Is that they get out to pick the team again tomorrow? Basically said, I've called you out, they've come to me and they've went, right, okay, Gaffer, you were bang on.
It could be. It could all be motivational mind games, Swanee. But
yeah,
I did listen to his press conference today, and he did say, look, if people are left out of the team, it doesn't mean it's the end for them here. That sounded to me as if he'd already made up his mind that there will be 2 or 3 casualties at least.
Yeah.
But, you know, does he have that many options available to him? I don't know.
No, I don't think so. And it's very difficult, Keith, because I think you boys touched on it last night. I think you and Scott both mentioned it. That I think it was maybe 6 or 7 or 8 of the guys had been there sort of 18 months, 2 years. They've been in this cycle of mediocrity at times. And we only need to look at our own columnist. How many times did Barry Ferguson have to call this out? Without response. I heard Barry do exactly the same as what Russell Martin's done. Come out and be straight as a die after the game, and in the next press conference for the next game saying, I've got the response I wanted in training. I think they've listened to me. And lo and behold, they went out and did the same thing again. And you wonder if Russell Martin's already thinking, oh, right, okay.
The messaging
over some players here.
The messaging is very similar, Swanee, because I think from day one with Barry Ferguson, he used a phrase which was, it's not enough to be a talented football player to make it, wearing a Rangers shirt. That's being talented isn't going to be enough for you. There's other qualities required. And that's effectively what Russell Martin's been talking about for the last couple of days now, that, you know, they've all got to this point in their career. They've got to move to Rangers. They're there. Mm-hmm. They'll be well paid for it. But if they actually want to be a successful Rangers player, they're going to have to dig deep and find that extra, whether it's resolve, grit, desire, hunger, all the things that Barry Ferguson was trying to get out of that squad last season. And I think he got, to an extent, he got a lot more than the previous manager was getting, but not enough. And that's why there were hiccups along the way, because this is a group of players that cannot be trusted. And, if Russell Martin feels, and you might well be right, Swanee, that by coming out, saying what he said, that agents are phoned and conversations start taking place that might expedite a few moves out the club, then you might be right, Swanee. That might be what he's trying to achieve, a bit of a disruption tactic. Yeah.
And I think you guys touched on it at length last night. I mean, you look at just to bring them into the conversation, you look at the Stephen Robinson, St Mirren players every time, they're the polar opposite. They bring the absolute maximum out of their ability by a willingness to drop, run, throw themselves in front of everything. It doesn't necessarily, getting your hands dirty isn't an admission of, well, I'm not a very good player, so I'm just going to try harder because I have to. They're not mutually exclusive.
No.